I think the main thing is that Chainlink, it powers a lot of applications in the crypto native DeFi world, and it's starting to power applications within the private chain institutional world. And the end goal, I think, is really the merging of these two worlds together. So the ability to connect financial institutions and their existing infrastructure onto public infrastructure, public blockchain networks, and being able to bring the trillions of dollars in capital that they have locked into their system and onboarding those as tokens onto public blockchain ecosystems is the final convergence between those two ecosystems. And I think Chainlink is the best positioned, both because the product platform offerings that it has, but also its track record of security and reliability.
I want to start off with the nickname, actually. So how did you come up with the nickname Chainlink God? What inspired you to go with this name?
Yeah, my Twitter account has existed since I was in high school many years ago. When I rebranded it into a Chainlink account, I wanted something that was unique. I didn't just want Chainlink fan 1234, which is what a lot of accounts do. And to be honest, it just was one of the first things that popped into my mind. I'm like, oh, Chainlink God, I'll be an educator. And then I chose one of my favorite memes as a profile picture. Someone else was already using it, so I'm like, all right, I have to change it. And then I switched it to this wizard frog. I'm like, okay, cool, my second favorite meme. And it didn't actually click with me until 3 months later. I'm like, wait, that profile picture looks like a god. That the username and the image just worked perfectly with each other. I didn't even realize it when I first did it. So I think there wasn't a deep, underlying thesis behind the name. It was more okay, it's a good soundbite, CLG, it's a good acronym, it's good SEO. If you look up Chainlink, you'll see Chainlink God is one of the first ones, and then once you establish a name, it just sticks, and it's something that you can't really deviate away from. So I do wish I put a little bit more thought into it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's stuck over the years, and now people say CLG, and it's become a moniker for me.
So you said it was your second favorite meme. So what was the first meme that you went with but realized it was already taken? What was that?
It was, it's going to sound weird describing it, but it's an Apu frog sitting in a bed, and he's just chilling really comfy. You can see the moon outside, but someone called Finrect was already using that picture. I'm like, okay, I can't use the same picture. So then I chose the wizard frog. I'm like, all right, perfect, that one works.
So when did you start that account?
So that was just history before that. I got into Chainlink early 2018, initially on 4chan on the Biz forum, and that's where I was absorbing a lot of information about Chainlink from the other research reports that Anins would create in the Chainlink white paper and all this material, and that was the absorbing information phase. And then in late 2018, someone named Crypto Oracle wrote a blog post called the God Protocol, where he described the Nick Szabo theory of there being a computer protocol that's as trustworthy as God himself. And if that protocol existed, you could run all financial contracts and it would be the most trustworthy counterparty imaginable. And he used that concept to describe the Chainlink protocol and how Chainlink works with smart contracts to create the most trustworthy form of contractual agreements. He wrote that blog post. He was very active on Twitter. His handle's Crypto Oracle. And so I found oh, okay, this is where smart people are going to talk about Chainlink. There was a very niche community at the time. It was about a dozen frogs on crypto Twitter just talking about Chainlink and shitposting and just generally, finding breadcrumbs and talking about Chainlink. I'm like, okay, this is a cool community to come join. And that was late 2018, very beginning of 2019. The community was very small or very niche at the time. And over time, I found that this community understood Chainlink, but there was a whole lot more people on crypto Twitter who did not understand Chainlink at all. And so then I kind of took the initiative and took things into my own hands to just create educational material and threads, and it just it really snowballed over time.
So you discovered Chainlink through the Biz forum on 4chan. Mm-hmm. And so what was your entry into the crypto world in general? How did you discover crypto?
Yeah, that was late 2017. I was in the gaming community, and everyone was pissed off at the GPU miners because they were buying up all the GPUs to mine Ethereum and to mine these other cryptocurrencies. And when I read that on Reddit, I'm like, oh, you can run a program on your computer that spits out money? Okay, I have to look into this. And so then I went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole of why does cryptocurrency have value? What's a distributed ledger? What is proof of work? How does that create hard, sound money? So I came at it from a technological perspective. I was going to school for computer science at the time. So I took the angle of why does a blockchain even have value? How does it fundamentally work? And then I went down the rabbit hole of okay, I looked at the CoinMarketCap list. I saw all the tokens that were all on Ethereum. Every single token was on Ethereum. I'm like, okay, well, what is Ethereum? Why is everyone launching a token there? And then I started learning about smart contracts and these digital agreements. And from there, I had this intuition that smart contracts don't really make sense if you don't have some kind of infrastructure to connect it to things in the real world. So if you had a mortgage as a smart contract, how does it know the state of the house, the condition of it, the price of the house, who's in it? Like, it doesn't know that. So how is that even useful as a technology? And then when I stumbled upon Chainlink, that's where it, like, all the pieces finally connected from, going from the very beginning about ledgers to the oracles, and that's when it really all started to really click for me at that point.
So you've built a strong Twitter presence and a unique personal brand. For those looking to do the same, what advice would you give on building an impactful online presence? Are there any key tips or strategies you'd recommend?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think the main thing is just giving information. If you go out there and you're trying to clearly extract value or try to deceive people, the main thing, you got to be genuine and you have to actually just be giving information, tweet threads, podcasts, blogs, memes, whatever format is most natural. You just have to give information, and then that can kind of grow your account over time. And giving information is both just putting it out there, but you have to enter the conversation at the same time. So if there's already a conversation about some topic, you have to be a reply guy a little bit and kind of jump into the conversation, introduce your opinion, share your material. And for me personally, how my account really accelerated in its growth was in mid-2020, Chainlink was like a bit of an underdog at the time. It was starting to power a lot of DeFi, but people didn't know what Chainlink was. And so I got into a lot of debates online, on Twitter threads for the most part, of just arguing with people who I perceived as not understanding Chainlink, and so we would go this back and forth, and I would be having an argument with somebody, but the point of the argument wasn't really to convince that person, it was to convince the onlookers, the 100, 1,000 times more people who are reading that thread, and then they'll read the post and go, okay, this guy is talking about Chainlink, he's educating, or just talking about a protocol, and then that's when they really started following me at that point, was engaging in those discussions. So the most successful accounts that I've seen as like an educator type role are those who just jump into the conversation and aren't afraid of having controversial opinions if they're able to actually back up those opinions.
So the key takeaway is provide value without expecting much, and try to educate the people around you and grow an audience that way.
Exactly, and sharing information but also having a unique perspective. If you're just going to go with the consensus every time, that's not a very unique voice, and you don't have to go against the grain just to be a contrarian or just to play the devil's advocate every time, but you need to be a little bit forward of this is my vision, this is my opinion of how things are going to shape out, and these are XYZ reasons why, and then people can kind of rally behind that vision that you have. So you need to have a unique voice, but you can't just throw it out into the void and expect people to start following you. Mm-hmm. You have to create some kind of platform, whether that's a podcast or you start reply guying to people or some kind of venue to get your voice out there. So you really need all those components.
For years you were known as CLG, Chainlink God, and then what happened? What made you want to dox yourself and make people know that you're actually Zach?
I think there's a couple different things. I think a broader macro reason is that we're starting to see a lot of institutions step into the space, and particularly with Chainlink. Now Chainlink's working with Swift and DTCC and a lot of these different entities. I think being the top community spokesperson, educator, being an Anand Green frog, didn't really mesh with the way the industry is going, in my opinion, and the way that crypto and Chainlink is going. So I think it's a more genuine, authentic identity for me. And I think it also opens up new avenues for educating people. So that's speaking at conferences, on panels, giving talks, giving these types of interviews. I think it's a way for people to connect with me and to connect with the message that I'm giving more cleanly. And I think in general, it's just more authentic to present myself in this way. It's a bit of a maturing moment, so to speak. I think our industry is maturing. It's taken a long time. And I think it's a maturing moment for my account and my brand. And I think the timing worked out very well.
Did you notice any significant changes in with the engagement with your account now that you had an actual face to it, a name attached to it as well? Was there a significant way people interacted with you on Twitter as a change?
I think the biggest thing that was surreal, and I mean it's obvious in hindsight, is that people would start calling me Zach instead of CLG. that shocked me. Oh yeah, I'm a human. I'm not a frog anymore on social media. But I think the engagement hasn't meaningfully changed. I think people follow thought leaders, for their opinions and for their views, not so much of like how they present themselves. So I think for some people it's like, whoa, like who is this Zach character? Like this is a new entity for me. But I think the same people who were engaging with me before are the same people engaging me with me now, and there's even more people now. So I think it's actually been like an accelerant to the growth of my account. But there's also so many other like macro factors, like where we are in the industry, how many people are focusing on Chainlink versus other things. There's a lot of different factors, but overall, I think it's been a very positive experience.
Nice. So we're at SmartCon right now. Is this your first time attending SmartCon, or?
No, this will be the third year. So there was the virtual one, then there was a New York conference, a Barcelona conference, and now this one in Hong Kong. So I've been to each one.
So so this is the first one you're attending after doxing. Like in the previous ones, were you like incognito, like still there, but like people had no idea you were CLG? How was that?
Back then, there was like people who I trusted like would know who I am, but otherwise, I was just like some random guy who was there. Nobody knew. This one's a bit different because I'll walk around and people go, "Oh, are you Zach? Like, are you CLG?" It's people are very nice. It's a very different experience, but that's kind of what I expected. And people would come up to me and like, "Hey, I've read your content since 2018. You helped like educate me on Chainlink." When people say those things in person, there's much more of a personal human connection factor versus online where people can be more vile. Crypto Twitter in general can just be more toxic, and so being in person with like-minded people has been it's been pretty cool to see and meet a lot of people in the community, and them coming up to me and recognizing who I am.
Nice. So let's talk about the week. So you've been to many SmartCon conferences in the past. Like how do you see this week different to the previous ones? And also tell me about your like goals and objectives for attending SmartCon.
Yeah, I think this week in particular, there was Cybos last week, SmartCon this week, and then there's Singapore FinTech Week next week. And so there's been a whole lot of announcements recently with institutions. Chainlink recently had an announcement with Swift and Euroclear on using AI, blockchains, and oracles for corporate actions data. There was ANZ Bank using CCP private transactions. There's this like true convergence between DeFi and TradFi happening at this unique moment in time. And so I think SmartCon's a very interesting conference, and particularly this year, is that you have the traditional bankers, suit and tie, like the traditional institutions, mingling with the DeFi degens and the Web3 native crypto people. I think that really resembles what Chainlink is as a protocol. It's the merging between these two worlds, and SmartCon's like the physical semblance of that actually happening in reality. So I think this year, every SmartCon's been a little bit like this, but I think with this year in particular, because of how much momentum there's been with institutional adoption, that it's starting to become clear that Chainlink is that focal point between those two different industries coming together. And I think for me, it's doing a lot of what I do on Twitter, a lot of the educating, a lot of the advocating, and doing that in person, doing that on a panel and meeting people in person and meeting these different institutions and Web3 and DeFi projects and talking to them about Chainlink and what their interests are in Chainlink and blockchain oracles and just the same advocacy and breaking down the information asymmetry that I do on Twitter, but doing that in person.
So you've been a part of Chainlink since 2018. When you reflect on the years, in the past several years, how has your perception of its mission and the community evolved? Were there specific turning points or developments in Chainlink's path that you found surprising?
I think in the early days I had a bit of a naive optimism of like institutions are coming in this year, it's going to happen this year, 2017, everyone's going to step in and start using smart contracts and Chainlink and oracles and all those things at scale. And I think over time it's become clear that things are a little bit more nuanced than that. There are more macro factors with either regulation or the state of the technology. Can blockchain scale? Is there privacy features? Is there buy-in from institutions and data providers? Like there's a lot of pieces that had to be set up. I think that when I got into the Chainlink community initially, I didn't know what the initial product market fit of oracles were going to be. I don't think anyone really knew what it was going to be. So when Chainlink price feeds launched and then DeFi as a sector was able to grow through protocols like Aave and Synthetics, it's like, okay, I wasn't expecting that to be the product market fit. And then now we have CCIP with both those same DeFi protocols and now institutions using it to connect these public and private chains. It's like, okay, I didn't expect earlier that Chainlink was going to play such a big role in cross-chain movement of assets. That's like a new area, but intuitively it makes sense. Bridges are just Oracle networks where the data source is another blockchain. It's just an expansion of what Chainlink does as a platform. So I think that over time, I always had a sense that Chainlink had this deep institutional connection, but I think it wasn't always clear to me like what the exact product would be that would be relevant. And I think at this point it's very clear it's both putting data on chain and it's the ability to move assets between different blockchain networks. And that's like a fundamental requirement for any institution to issue and move a tokenized asset around. So that wasn't always clear. I knew oracles would be important, but now the vision, the how is more clear now, where it wasn't super clear before.
Over the past few years, we've seen new Oracle solutions emerging. What do you think are the qualities or factors that keep Chainlink at the forefront of this industry? And are there specific challenges or advantages that you see unique to Chainlink?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what makes Chainlink unique compared to other Oracle platforms is that the way Chainlink operates, it's really this unified platform of on-chain data services like price feeds and proof of reserve, off-chain computation like automation or verifiable random numbers, and then the cross-chain interoperability with protocols like CCIP. And so Chainlink is really this one unified platform where any kind of service that blockchains do not or cannot provide, Chainlink as a platform is able to provide all those services. It's a full stack offering. And so when I look at different Oracle offerings that are out in the market, they're usually what I would consider a single service vendor provider. So you'll have a protocol that just does price feeds, or you'll have a protocol that just does cross-chain. But when you're an institution or a DeFi application, you have a lot of different requirements beyond blockchains. You need price data, you may need some kind of automation for liquidations, you may need cross-chain to connect all the different deployments that you have across networks. And you can come to Chainlink, and when you integrate price feeds, you can start to integrate these other services with little to no additional trust assumptions. It's all one platform offering. Whereas if you go with these other protocols, you got to pull something from over here, something from over there, and they all have different trust assumptions, they all have different cost models, they all have different interfaces, and it's far more complicated. So when I look at the market, I don't see any other protocol that's doing this full platform offering. And the way that I kind of think about it, and people have compared it, is Google and Amazon and Facebook, like they're full stack offerings. Like I think the best example is actually Microsoft and Google. So like in each category, they have a different competing offering. They have Bing versus Google Chrome. You have Google Cloud Platform versus Azure. Like each service, they're competing on a different offering. With Chainlink, we have these different services, but there's no other protocol that perfectly has a competing offering. It's like a mismatch of different service providers. That'll probably change in the future, most likely. But I think at this stage in time, there's no other Oracle platform that just matches the full scope that Chainlink is doing. And I think that's something that not everyone's necessarily recognized, as they still think Chainlink is like just a price feed thing, whereas it's evolved far past that at this point.
So looking forward to the future, what is the ultimate vision for Chainlink, you think? What will be the ultimate impact Chainlink will bring to the broader blockchain ecosystem?
I think the main thing is that Chainlink, it powers a lot of applications in the crypto native DeFi world, and it's starting to power applications within the private chain institutional world. And the end goal, I think, is really the merging of these two worlds together. So the ability to connect financial institutions and their existing infrastructure onto public infrastructure, public blockchain networks, and being able to bring the trillions of dollars in capital that they have locked into their system and onboarding those as tokens onto public blockchain ecosystems is the final convergence between those two ecosystems. And I think Chainlink is the best positioned, both because the product platform offerings that it has, but also its track record of security and reliability. It's been proven in DeFi to power DeFi markets specifically, but the same exact infrastructure can also be used within the institutional context of those types of applications. And so I think the role of Chainlink really is to connect those two worlds together and ultimately create almost an abstraction layer between those two worlds. So as an institution, I want to connect to the world of blockchains, but I don't want to pick a specific blockchain winner because I don't know who's going to win. My counterparty maybe use Avalanche, or maybe they use Solana, or maybe they use Ethereum, I don't know. And I don't want to have to spend the time and energy integrating with all those specific chains. So if I can connect my existing system that I've already spent $1 billion on, I have 10,000 employees who have already trained to use it, I'm not going to throw that out the window. I just want to plug my system into the Chainlink system, and then I'll gain access to the hundreds of blockchains, public and private, that all my counterparties use. And so it's like this lubricant that just accelerates the process of institutions stepping on chain and the ability to bring more value into public blockchain ecosystem and DeFi applications. Because the problems that DeFi is trying to solve are not that far different than what institutions want to solve. They want more accessibility, they want more liquidity, they want more participation in their systems. And so they're a natural pairing for each other. It just needs the lubricant, the connectivity layer between those two ecosystems. So I think at scale, ideally what I see for Chainlink is just this ultimate abstraction layer between these two different worlds that they can seamlessly communicate with each other without having to deal with fragmented standards or mismatched service providers that just would cause a headache for everybody.
I want to wrap up by talking about the broader crypto markets. Do you see a major bull run around the corner in the next 12 months? What are your thoughts?
I think what's interesting about the next 12 months is that crypto's really become two industries in my mind. You have the institutions who are starting to step on chain. BlackRock and the Buildable Fund is a great example, but all the major asset managers have started to launch products on public blockchains. So we're starting to see the institutional adoption of blockchain starting to kick off. So the protocols that enable that are going down the route of being able to bring a lot of capital on chain. And then you have the other segment of the crypto ecosystem, which is what I would call the hyper-speculative casino gambling meme coin casino. That's like the meme coin super cycle that people have been talking about. And I think both of those worlds are going to coexist together, but I think they're very much two different industries. And so I think as we get into the next 12 months, regardless of who wins the election, I think things are shaping up where institutions want clarity on crypto regulation because they want to be able to adopt these systems. And there's going to be even more retail participation, whether in the institutional context or the meme coin context. And so all of these participants want clarity. And even if it doesn't happen in one region, it's going to happen in another region. Like it's at this point, it's no longer if crypto is going to be adopted, it's just purely when. And there's all these catalyst factors that are starting to happen over the next 12 months that I think it's inevitable that we're going to start to see a lot of activity happening. And I think that we're also at a unique stage where blockchains can actually scale now. In 2017, Ethereum, it didn't break, but CryptoKitties caused a lot of congestion and that slowed things down. But now that layer 2 networks have arrived, we have things like Solana. As retail starts to step in, there's actually the bandwidth to support those types of applications, and you can create entirely new types of applications. So I think ideally what I would love to see is that this development won't be just like a big flash in the pan spike, but it can actually be sustaining as people start to get onboarded, which they usually do during upswings in the market. They can actually stay on chain. They won't get booted off because the transaction costs have gotten so high. So maybe this is a little optimistic, but I think that with this cycle, people will be able to be onboarded on chain and they can stay on chain and they'll be converted into an on-chain format, whether directly by using blockchains themselves or indirectly through the fact that their institution uses a blockchain on the back end. I think both are probably going to happen in parallel.
Do you have any final words you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up?
I think the main thing is that, in crypto, there's been a lot of different factors that have caused people to become a little demoralized, I think. I call it financial nihilism, and that's kind of the meme coin cycle a little bit. But I think when you step back and you look at how crypto has evolved over the past year, the past 3 years, the past 5 years, we've come a long way. Blockchains can actually scale. We have real secure infrastructure for cross-chain interoperability. We have a lot more tokens and a lot more liquidity. Institutions are no longer talking about blockchains in like a theoretical sense, but they're actually launching on-chain products. The largest of which being BlackRock. They actually have a product on Ethereum mainnet. If you told me that like 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't believe you, but it's actually happening at this stage. And so I think people get stuck in the cycles, they get stuck focusing on the price. But when you look at the actual fundamentals that have been developed, we've made a lot of progress over the years. And I'm optimistic that over the next 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, crypto is inevitable and things are only going to accelerate. And I think that's ultimately a force for societal good. And I'm very optimistic for the way that crypto is going to shape up over the next 10 years.
Exciting. Well, Zach, it was great to meet you and great to chat with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Likewise. Thank you.